Growth doesn't come from your comfort zone. This is something that I have been abundantly clear on the last 3 years. I have not felt more uncomfortable than the last 3 years. It's mainly to do with, I guess, traditional employment versus what I'm trying to do. I've always had a job. I've always had a salary. I've always had, a paycheck coming in that someone else pays. And now I'm trying to basically unlearn what I was always told was the norm. And what I always was told was what you had to do. Go to school, maybe go to uni, get a job, and that's what you do. And you just try to make a living and go from there. That's kind of what I was always taught. And I'm guessing most of you, I would say the majority of people would probably feel the same way. That's something that I've had to really unlearn and challenge. And it's been rough. It's been super rough because you just kind of want to retreat sometimes. And I know I've wanted to retreat. I've wanted to basically pretend I didn't hear and pretend I didn't learn that and go back to that as much as possible. And it's been really challenging. But I think that lesson of growth not coming from your comfort zone couldn't be more true, whatever you're doing in life. The reason why I'm talking about that here is because I know this was a really important lesson for me, and it could be an important lesson for you too in your life, whatever you're trying to do. It doesn't have to look the same as mine. It may not be remotely related to that exact same kind of sector or part of your life, but it could be something. It could be in a relationship. It could be you're with someone now that's really open and honest and emotionally intelligent, self-aware. They challenge you in that way and you're quite closed off. And now you're faced with, well, I either open up or I could lose them, and I don't want to lose them. And growth hurts. Growth is uncomfortable. It's the discomfort. It's the new muscles you're trying to build and grow. And that's another analogy too. If you lift, if you go to the gym, you break down your muscles and you let them heal, and you can lift more, you will become stronger, you can grow the muscle. And it only comes through breaking it down initially. And it's uncomfortable. And especially when you start out, it is uncomfortable. There's a lot of discomfort there, and that is just part of the process. But then eventually, it's an enjoyable process. And that's the thing. I think comfort is seen as such a desired thing nowadays, which again makes sense. It's comfortable. It's such a desired thing that I think that's desired above growth as a general thing. It's like, I just want to chill. I just want to do this and everything. And comfort and rest is a part of life that is understandable. But when it hinders us from growing, that's when it might be a problem in that particular ratio. So maybe it's 70-30 and that's not enough. 50-50 might be fine. Maybe growth 60-40, that sort of thing. Or maybe there's periods of time where growth is pushed really hard and there's less comfort for a period of time. Maybe there's more comfort to recover at other times, and maybe it gears you up for a bit more of a growth period, whatever it may be. Or maybe it's a steady, fluctuation, who knows? But seeking comfort over growth can be a ratio that hurts you in the long run. And that's totally dependent on what you're wanting, obviously. If you're not wanting to grow in certain parts of your life, no problem. You might be totally content and satisfied. This isn't for you. That's fine. This podcast isn't for you. That's totally fine. This particular message isn't for you. But the reason why I'm sharing this today is because this is something that's been really challenging me over the last 3 years in multiple parts of my life. Doing uncomfortable things, doing challenging things, challenging ways I've always done stuff, challenging ways I've always thought or seen things or done life. And it doesn't mean everything I did previously was bad, but it may not be where I want to be. Maybe not where I want to go in life. And that's something that I've got to change if I want to get there. So today I caught up with some friends at a thing we do, a men's prayer at an old church that I used to go to. And I really enjoyed that church. And again, leaving that church was a difficult thing for me because there's nothing technically wrong with the church. Enjoyed it. They do community really well, which in my experience, I haven't found too many churches that do community really well. I usually find them a bit cliquey. And that's just my experience. Other people don't have the experience. I've had that experience. But with this particular church, they do community really well, but I know that Hannah and I were praying quite a lot, and we just didn't feel like it was the place for us anymore. But I didn't feel like on the particular morning of a week, they do an early morning men's prayer. We get together, have a coffee, chat, have a bit of a word, like a bit of a mini sermon, I guess, like a bit of a message from someone, that's something that's on their heart. And then we share, pray for each other, and that's the end of the morning. And it's really nice. I've always enjoyed it. It's been my favorite part of that church for a long time. And I felt like that was a fine thing to continue, felt at peace about it. And I've been continuing on there, even though we probably haven't done I haven't been to the church for a service in about 3-ish years, but still close relationships and everything like that. But this morning, I caught up with a friend of mine who in speaking with him in the past, he can flip his approach when he gets scared, challenged, uncomfortable. And today he was talking about the fact that he was considering going back to his old job. This job he's had for a really long time. He didn't enjoy it. He didn't like it. His whole plan for years that I've known him, probably 3 or 4 years that I've known him, maybe a bit longer, was I'm going to work on that job. I'm going to build a certain amount of equity, build a certain amount of nest egg, go and launch my own business. And then I'm going to build from there, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And for the longest time, he stayed in that job. He didn't want to get out of that. He was like, oh, no, just a bit longer. Just need a bit more. And again, he's got a family too. I get it. I totally understand it. That was exactly where I was at. And it is a hard thing to challenge or to uproot or to change your view of, because ultimately you want to provide. I want to provide. He wants to provide. He wants to be stable and have that regular money coming in. And I guess when you're doing it on your own, depending on what your business model is, that might not be the case. So for him, he was changing a lot, and he put it off for years, for the longest time. But then he finally did it last year. Last year, probably at the second half of last year, he resigned. He started his own business, and he started really well. He was doing some things in property. He got about 6 or 8 sales. He's like, I wasn't even trying, but this year I haven't sold anything. And it's about, it's close to the end of last week of February at the moment. And he was saying that, I think I just need to go back to my old job and build some more equity, and then I can buy another property, and I can do this, and I can do that. I talked to him about this, and I talked to him about, growth doesn't come from your comfort zone. It comes from being challenged by doing the things that you're not used to, by doing the things that do challenge you, and it forces you to grow. And he's only been talking about wanting to grow for the past few years. He's only been talking about what he wants to do with his business, and he's had a really clear vision on it. And he's, been really quite driven. Like, he really puts in the effort. And I personally think that he's definitely going to get somewhere, because he really works hard at it. He's committed to it. And I think the clarity gives me confidence, and I'm sure it probably gives him confidence when he's feeling good. But he wasn't feeling good today. He was really considering, as like, I went for the other job interview, and I'm also going to maybe hit up my old job and then maybe do that for like 6 months. And then I'll duck back off, and I'll do this thing again and get the momentum back and everything. And I was just asking him, like, well, what changes? What changes with that? Is that not where you were previously? And he was like, yeah, I guess, like, but it's just hard, man. Like, I, don't have that paycheck, don't have that security. And I totally agree. You don't have that security. You don't have that regular thing coming in, that thing that you don't have to even think about it. You're like, Thursday comes or Friday comes, and it's straight in there, and I can rest a bit easier over the weekend and do it, pay the bills and whatever else. When you're doing it on your own, or when you're providing your own income, when you're stepping out on your own, or it's just not a traditional business model or a traditional payment model, that's uncomfortable. So with him, that's a similar thing that he's going through right now. And I was talking to him about it. I was saying, growth doesn't come from your comfort zone. You were at that job. You didn't like it. You finally got out of it. And now that there's a bit of discomfort, and he's still got a nest egg there. He said he's got about 8 to 10 months that he doesn't have to worry about money. before anything else happened. And I said, you've still got an opportunity to do this before going back. And I said, and I was just floating with him different ideas. And the fact that I brought up our situation too, of going, dude, I've been uncomfortable for 3 years. This is really tricky. This is really hard. And I know for me that this is something that I want to grow. And I think that's something where when you're wanting to step out, when you're wanting to do more, have more, be more in whatever capacity in life, whether it's everything, whether it's growing or challenging your body, whether it's growing businesses, your relationships, whatever it may be, you will face those challenges. You face those challenges of time management, of money management, all these different things that I guess you will face. And it's about figuring out whether that's important enough for you to do that, whether it's important enough to try and attain that growth, or whether it's something that it's not important enough. I'm just going to go back to what it was. I far enjoyed that life. And then you stop. With my friends, we've only talked about growth and all these other things that I felt totally fine to go, dude, what are you doing? You are so ready to throw it away after you talked to me for years about wanting to throw away your other job and step out, and now you're doing it and you were doing well. And just because there's a lull doesn't mean it's going to be like that forever. Doesn't mean you have to throw all your effort out just because there's a bit of this hiccup or this discomfort. Yes, it sucks. Yes, it's not fun. However, in that discomfort is where the growth happens. And I kept talking about this, and I was saying about my situation, and obviously we're there for men's prayer, and he's a Christian also. And I talked to him about the spiritual aspect of things that I found. And I know for me, a big learning at that particular time was that I had become reliant on someone else to provide for me, to someone else to pay for my paycheck, that when Thursday comes, I'm sweet. That's all good. I was a bit disillusioned with my job. Ethically and value-wise, I didn't align with it. I could work autonomously, and I just did that. And if I was going to get in trouble, I just said, sorry guys, I can't do that thing. That doesn't align with me, but I can do all these other things, and I can support my clients and everything, and I'm fine to do that. If there's any issues, no problem. And so I still stuck to my values and ethics, but I felt like it wasn't the right place for me for quite a while. And then eventually my hand was forced with that, and that was the end of my work. And it was really something that was difficult, because even though I knew it wasn't the right place for me, it still was the place that I was at. It's my longest standing job. I was there for 5 years, and it still is so uncomfortable. Primary breadwinner for, a family of 6 at the time, young kids. I think everyone was 7 and under, and it was tough. It was very tough. There's been hard moments for sure, and difficult learning periods of time where you're challenged so much, but things have always worked out. And that's something that I spoke to him about, was that even though you don't have that security, if you're relying on God, God provides, and he never leaves you nor forsakes you. And that's something that I've really found through experience. And obviously I was taught that, but when you experience it in your life too, that really resonates and sits with you. Myself, I had to really learn that, because I knew it, but I wasn't acting or living from that position. I wasn't pivoting from that position. I was like, I better do this, better do that. And then I get the paycheck, and then I'm sweet, and then we can pay for this and pay for that. And, I'm kind of quote unquote stuck there, or it's comfortable enough where you don't move. That even though it's not great, even though it's not somewhere that you want to be, there's some things that you want to be there. Like, I had some really good people around me there. I had some great friendships and everything, and that was awesome. And I liked my clients and the autonomy I enjoyed, the flexibility, things like that. But the morals, values, ethics of the organization was just stuff that really didn't sit well, and I could figure out a way around it, but ultimately it was there. And that was really tricky for me to deal with. And I knew it wasn't the right place for me long term, but I stayed, and that's what was working. And it was comfortable enough that I could still do the other things that I wanted to do, but maybe just not in the capacity that was ideal for me. So eventually I knew it wasn't right, and then it ended. And I was very challenged throughout that time, but there was this unbelievable peace, that perfect peace that passes all understanding, where even my parents, who were concerned at the time, even I told him, I said, I don't feel comfortable, but I also feel very peaceful. Like this is the right choice. And I remember my mum looking at me and going, I do too, actually. And that was really nice, that confirmation. But again, totally challenging, definitely uncomfortable. And I've talked to him about that situation in the past, and I'm fine to do maybe a full episode on what happened or things like that and kind of talk through that process a bit more. But in order to keep it somewhat brief, I talked to my friend about this in the past, talked to him about this, how it aligns with him. Didn't want to be there, knew it wasn't the right job, stuck there for quite a long time, wanted to get out, finally did it. When it becomes uncomfortable, wanting to jump back to traditional sort of employment. And that's fine. If that's what you want to do, that's totally fine. But there's something that he didn't want to do, nor I. And we had talked about that. And I was just kind of saying to him that, every time I was concerned about something financially or otherwise, God provided in different ways. And he provided in ways that were challenging to me. And what I mean by that is I was like, Lord, praying for this, and I really would like to get to this level and all this sort of stuff, and help me to do so, etc. And please provide for us in these different ways. I'm really trying, Lord, to, allow you to provide for me. And it's not sitting on your hands, by the way, but it's that sort of thing where it's like, you're not just putting all your faith in you and your works solely. It's relying on God as well. You can work heartily and do all that sort of stuff. God bless my steps, put me where I need to be, etc. And God always provided. The last 3 years, challenging times that didn't make sense, he would provide in ways that I'm like, we never went without, actually. Even the times when I was like, this isn't good, he always came through for us. Like he's never worried. We might be worried. I'm worried. I'm concerned. I'm uncomfortable. But he's just, yeah, well, I got it. That's fine. You asked me to be there. I'm there. And he's not forsaking anyone. He's always there. He's always listening. And that one of the other lessons for me was God works all things for good. And that's been a massive trend for me the last few years. And to the point where now my default is something doesn't happen and it doesn't make sense, because on paper it looks awesome. Because again, in my thinking, I'm like, that makes total sense. That's going to rule. This should happen this way. It'll happen, praying about it, etc. Doesn't happen. That doesn't make any sense why that wouldn't come through. But now I know there's got to be something greater. There's a reason why that didn't happen. And I was talking to my friend about that this morning, is that, with these things, and because he gets really set in his mind, and it makes sense, he's driven and everything, and he's like, oh, I've had these deals, and then I was right up at the finish line, and then it just didn't happen. I don't know why. And I was just praying, like, Lord, what's going on? Like, and he gets really worked up sometimes, quite emotionally and kind of upset. And I get it. But some people want to go question it and stuff, and then some people want to throw out the book and kind of throw their hands up a little bit. He's borderline that. And I was like, dude, just remember the whole picture. Don't just remember this uncomfortable bit. Remember the whole bit. Like, he's been pretty good to you. Like, God's been pretty good to you. He's always come through. He's been pretty good to you. So just give him some credit, ask him, challenge, all that sort of stuff. But don't throw away everything he's done for you just because you're feeling crappy right now. I was reminded also of something that happened previously when he first stepped out and did his new job. He had a property. It was all lined up. It was a great deal. It was all these different things. The buyers were keen, and then it just fell through. And he was just going, what's going on, God? All this sort of stuff. And I just said, God works all things for good. Wasn't trying to fob him off. I'm just trying to be quick. God works all things for good. I'm sure there's something better out there. And within a week, he had found a better deal, more money, a smoother process for that exact same property. God's pretty consistent, and I just think that's something there that I was reminding him of. And also where he's been, where he wanted to go, and what's required to get there, because that's been a very challenging thing for me. The other thing that I talked to him about, from my perspective, was I've been uncomfortable for 3 years, growing in different ways. It's been difficult, and it's still not fully comfortable. It's more comfortable than what it was, because again, there's growth there, but it's not ideal. It's not fun, especially when you think, there's so much easier if that thing would happen, or if this deal would come through, or if I got these clients, or if I did this or that, or changed this business model, etc. But it might be against what God said, or it might be God told you to do this, and you're kind of going, well, that doesn't really make sense. I'm going to go do that instead. And then you tread water over there, and it's not sticking. You're not floating, basically. So then you're reminded of what God originally said. And he's like, I told you to do this like 6 months ago. And you're like, yeah, I remember that. So I was talking to him about that, trying to be obedient, even though I don't want to be, trying to be obedient to God to then, even though I don't want to kind of be, because it's so uncomfortable. But then I said to him that I don't want to do some of this stuff, but he's told me to do it. And I'm really I'm trying hard. I was about to say I'm trying my best. I think I am trying my best, but if I'm not trying my best, I'm still trying really hard. And even though there's times of doubt, I think I'm trying my best for that moment. But in saying that, it doesn't make it easy. I've got a bit of comfort there knowing who's telling me what. I've got a lot of comfort from that, but it's still stretching and growing me. And I'm like, man, it's still uncomfortable. That stretching, growth pains. So I was talking to him about that. And the other thing I said to him was, I don't want to get 3 years into this thing, get really close to the finish line, and then settle for bronze or settle for honorable mention or settle for something less. Especially because I've done all this work. I've done all the work. Why not just see it through? And I was trying to encourage him with that. And he's like, yeah, I think you're right. And he's pumped. But we'll see how it goes. He was good at when I left him. Good when I left him. Good when we stopped talking. But who knows how I'll feel tomorrow? Because I know he goes up and down a bit with that stuff. But I wanted to encourage you as well, because it encouraged him at the time and it's encouraged me, that growth really doesn't come from your comfort zone. At least not in the huge amount of ways that being uncomfortable can do. The challenging things, the fast that I did, it grows you, but it's not easy, And it's not something that I really want to do, but I know all the benefits that are in there. I know the things that it's going to do for me physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all these sorts of things. And I'm not perfect with this by any means. I still very much enjoy my comfort zone. However, I feel worse when I'm there long term. I feel better knowing when I've done my best, when I'm trying, when I'm listening to God and stepping out, even when it's scary, even when it's hard, and even when I'm the only one doing so. And yeah, it's really difficult, but that comfort zone is more difficult long term. And I relate it to clients as well, with the comfort zone or choosing to, try, etc. One is easier short term and one is harder long term. One is more attractive and one is not as attractive. But the thing is, as much as you want your comfort zone, that's actually easier short term but harder long term. If you stay in your comfort zone, you become uncomfortable because you're like, I'm avoiding these things that I cared about. I'm avoiding trying. That's hard to live with when you're avoiding trying, when you're compromising you and what you love. Whereas the growth aspect and trying and really putting yourself out there and giving it your all, even though it's tough, that is harder short term, easier long term. Because even if you failed, even if you fell short and you didn't quite reach the heights that you wanted to reach, but you gave it everything, you can sleep at night. You can sleep at night going, I did everything I could. So even the worst case scenario, you will sleep better, you will feel better than this comfort zone, than the thing that you're most familiar with. Again, easier short term, harder long term, harder short term, easier long term. More growth, less growth. That's all it is. I just want to encourage you today that your growth is very much worth it, that the discomfort that you feel is not fun. It's uncomfortable, obviously, but it's growing you into the person required to get to where you want to be, to do what you want to do, to reach the levels and the heights that you want. And when you do that on a smaller scale, on a larger scale, you reap the benefits, but those around you reap the benefits too. Your family, your friends, your kids, everyone. And it's very much worth it. And as a parent, if you're a parent doing that, that's a lesson in itself to the kids. I talk to them about that quite a bit. All things are hard before they're easy. And just to show them that I'm not comfortable, but I'm trying, and I know I'll get better if I keep going, and that they can do the same. So that's it. I hope this helps, and pleasure. Take care, and see you in the next one.